section of a bisexual flower. This is section of a bisexual flower. What is this example? Majorly we talk about the hibiscus, prominent petals, parts of the flower all prominent there. So we are talking about the section of the bisexual flower. Now in this section of the bisexual flower, in the section of the bisexual flower, here we are talking about what are the major parts. Let us talk about the major parts of the flower there. Let me just show you also parallel if you refer to this figure. The major parts of the flower. Let us look into the major parts of the flower. This is a bisexual flower. Why? Because it has got the male, female parts both. We are going to learn now one by one. The flower, what is the definition of flower? The definition of flower is the reproductive shoot. What is the definition of the flower? Define a flower. Flower is the reproductive shoot. It is a shoot, upper part of the plant it is. But it is a reproductive, it is a part of the plant which consists of the reproductive organs, the structures. That's the reason we always define it is a reproductive shoot. The parts of the flower are known as the whorls of the flower. What are the whorls of the flower? Meaning the parts. What are the major parts we are going to talk about? The first is the calyx. The second is the corolla. The third is the stamen. And then the fourth is the carpel or the pistil. So we talk about the stamen and the fourth is the carpel or the pistil. So we now talk about these parts one by one, look into their function. The first one, the calyx. Features for the calyx, what should you remember is, it is generally green in color. Calyx, generally green in color. When we are talking about certain plants, they may have calyx and the corolla almost the same. But then also, mostly they are all green in color, exceptions, few types of flowers only. Being green in color, what is their specific function is? Their major function is the protection of the bud. Their major function is protection of the bud. That is one. Second is, since they are green in color, they also are capable of undergoing photosynthesis. The cells have got chloroplast. So I talk about the first part of the first whole of the flower. What is the first whole known as? The first whole is the calyx, also known as the sepal, generally 5. Green in color. What is their function? Function is protection of the bud. And the second is photosynthesis. We come to the second. Petals. Petals are brightly colored. Petals are brightly colored. Mostly petals of a flower brightly colored. Except for few flowers, we again understand that they may be white. They may be white in color, but petals white comparatively lesser. We are talking about petals are brightly colored. You'll have to write all these points in your notebook. So petals are brightly colored. Function is what? What are you supposed to write down as the function? Function of the petals, they attract agents for pollination. They attract agents for pollination. We'll have to learn what is pollination. Petals are brightly colored. In certain cases, petals are scented also. They may produce, the cells also produce some special chemical substances, providing that fragrance to the petals, providing the fragrance. So anyways, whether it is scented, not scented, if they are brightly colored, they always attract agents for pollination. We are talking about now the third part. What is the third region known as? The third region is known as the stamen. What are the parts of the stamen? To remember, what are the parts of the stamen? The parts of the stamen are anther, and the filament. Name the components of stamen, anther and filament. What is stamen? Talking about the stamen, what is it? It is the male reproductive part of the flower. It is the male reproductive part of the flower. Components are anther, filament. We look into the anther especially. What are some features of the anther? The anther is bilobed. Why do we name it as such? If I talk about one anther, how do we draw those anther? We always draw the anther this way. Because every single anther has got two basic portions are there, two basic parts as it joined together. So it is bilobed. Every single anther is this way. Bilobed, that's one feature. Function kya hai? What is the function of the anther? Producing the pollen grains. Producing the pollen grains, that is its function. And this pollen grains later will be giving rise to the male reproductive cells. So the third part of the flower, I've been talking about the calyx, corolla and the stamen. What is stamen? The male reproductive part of the flower. What does it give rise to? What is its function? The anther part is the major important part, and the anther will be producing the pollen grain. Then what is the function of the filament? Only to support the anther. Otherwise, it doesn't have any other function. Only to support the anther, attach the anther to the flower. That is its function. Sometimes anther will be so long, starting from the base of the flower and rising up till the stigma. Sometimes they will be just coming out from the surface of the stigma or surface of the style. We talk about this part now, the stigma. What is the function of the stigma? To talk about the female reproductive part of the flower, that is the last goal of the flower, the female reproductive part. What is the female reproductive part known as? The carpel or the pistil. Components are stigma, style, ovule. Stigma, what is its role? What is its function? It is the landing surface or the landing ground for the pollen grain. It is the landing surface or the landing ground for pollen grain. Meaning, now that this anther will be releasing the pollen, this pollen will go and get attached where? Only in the stigma, not in any other part of the flower. The pollen should come in contact with the stigma. टाइम पूछ रहा है क्यों किसे मिलेगा पढ़ो ना यहाँ पे बैठ के प्रॉब्लम क्या है Now when we are talking about the stigma, what is the function of the stigma? The function of the stigma is it is the landing ground for the pollen grain. Then only the process of pollination and fertilization will happen. What about the style? What is the role of the style? The style provides nourishment. The style provides nourishment for the development of or for the germination of pollen. For the germination of the pollen. What is germination of the pollen? We will learn right now. So I said when you are supposed to write down the functions, write down the function of stigma, state the function of style. Likhoge kya? Stigma, what is it? It will receive the pollen, allow the pollen to grow. So it is receiving the pollen. It is the landing ground for the pollen grain. That is the typical way of writing. You can also write down receives the pollen. वो भी लिख सकते हो. Style, what is it? The entire this neck-like region is actually packed with sugar and some proteins. So when the pollen grain sits here, this pollen grain will now be able to sense this. Do you remember chemotropism? For chemotropism also I showed you this concept. So if the pollen and the stigma are of the same flower or similar species, related species, then they will be able to identify the chemical substances, then only this pollen will grow on the stigma. Growing of the pollen, developing of the pollen is what is known as germination of the pollen. So I said, what is the function of the stigma to write? The function of the stigma is providing nourishment for the germination of the pollen grain. Style, yes, style. Style provides the nourishment, food. What about the ovary? Very important part of the flower. The ovary is the site for fertilization. Ovary is the site for fertilization. It is here where the process of fertilization takes place. Site for fertilization, what is especially the site for fertilization? It is inside the ovule. So now it is the site for fertilization, but it is actually inside the ovule. Inside every ovule, the process of fertilization is happening. And at the same time, the ovary produces the fruit. The ovary will produce the fruit. Now let us try to understand how the process of conversion of a flower to a fruit happens. So we are talking about this entire structure, the flower, with the prominent four main holes, and the thalamus is the broad end of the flower, the broad base. Quite a number of times in certain plants, this broad base will start maturing and developing and form the entire fruit, like the tomatoes. So this type of thalamus, a number of times, they themselves start growing broad and develop and form the fruit. So when we are talking about the apple and the tomatoes, they develop that way. But most of the fruits from the flower, they will undergo germination and then followed by fertilization and then form the without the color it will drop. So now these are the parts of the flower: the calyx, the corolla, the anther, the stamen, and then respective functions all to remember. Clear hai? Parts clear hai? Functions clear hai? Anther, stamen, and then the function for the ovary, the style, the stigma, everything should be very clear. Now we are going to add, what is it? Kya hai the stigma, what is it?
Anther और filament का stamen में
Anther and filament together they form the stamen. Together they are known as a stamen. So what is the male reproductive part जो लिखना है? That is stamen, consisting of anther and filament. Consisting of anther and filament. Okay. Now the next part that we have to study, once you are aware about the parts, their functions. Now the next part that we'll talk about is how fertilization takes place. What is the method of fertilization in a plant? Now plants which gives rise to flowers. Are you aware what are these? You will get this word at times in your question paper. Explain the process of double fertilization in angiospermic plants. Did you ever come across this word? Angiosperms. Do you know what are angiosperms? What are angiosperms? Plants which gives rise to flower. So I may say that grasses are angiosperms. Yes. Grass also gives rise to flower. Are mangoes angiosperms? Yes. So a grass, hibiscus और mango, guava में difference क्या है? In case of guava and mango, the flower is giving rise to the fruit. In case of grasses and hibiscus, flower तो है, but the flower is not giving rise to any fruit. But either ways, चारों के चारों flowering plants है. So if they are flowering plants, these are angiosperms. You get in your question paper, explain the process of double fertilization in angiosperms. Same ही है, it's the same thing that we are asking you. Angiosperms means flowering plants. Okay. Now let us learn what is meant by the process of double fertilization. Should I erase this part? All done? No, all of you are done? So we talk about the process of double fertilization. To understand double fertilization, let us come across the concept of gametes. At the start, I had already explained you what is meant by gametes. What is the process we are going to study? Reproduction in flower. What is this method known as? This method is known as double fertilization. This is known as double fertilization. We will learn why is it known as double. Let us first start with the type of the gametes. Male gametes, how are they formed? Male gametes, if I talk about this pollen, let us understand. This is a pollen grain. This is the pollen. What will happen to this pollen? The moment the pollen is in contact with the stigma, what is the job of the stigma? Receives the pollen. So, agar pollen and the stigma are absolutely of two different plants. The pollen of hibiscus or the pollen of the mango comes in contact with the stigma of the hibiscus. Grow hoga? Will that pollen undergo germination?
No.
No, absolutely unrelated they are. So, but the pollen of the yellow colored hibiscus coming in contact with the stigma of the red colored hibiscus, will it grow? Yes, they are related.
Orange
Similar. Anytime. Anytime. So now that we are talking about process of germination will only happen between related species. Okay. Now the pollen, when it comes in contact with the stigma, now what would happen? Let us try understanding a method known as. No, every time it will not be just the hybrid. No, immediately it will not form the hybrid. Kafi baar, the prominent characteristics also may develop. I talk about the yellow falling on the red. Not necessarily, no, it will be majorly pink. Not necessarily give rise to orange. White and red combination will always be pink. Yes, a pink type of a flower, not the orange one.
आपने yellow और red बोला.
I said yellow and red. I said yellow and red. Now the pollen on the stigma. Now that the pollen on the stigma, what are the stages? This pollen immediately will start formation of a small tube-like structure like this. What about the nucleus? The nucleus starts dividing into two parts. What are these nuclei now known as? This is known as the generative nucleus and the other part known as the vegetative nucleus. So what is it? We talk about the generative nucleus, and what about this one? This is known as the vegetative nucleus. So what am I saying? How will the pollen grow? From one single nucleus, which will divide into two parts. What are these two nuclei known as? The two nuclei will be known as generative, vegetative. What now next? This pollen will again start or will continue the growth of the pollen tube till it reaches the base of the ovule. It will continue the growth of the pollen tube, but by that time, this generative nucleus has again developed into two more nuclei. What about the vegetative? It will just remain as it is. So this is the vegetative nucleus which will be later used up during the maturation of the generative nucleus which is dividing. What happened there? Kuch doubt hai? The generative nucleus is dividing to form two male nuclei. These are also known as the sperm nucleus. These are also to be termed as the sperm nucleus. So how many male gametes am I talking about? I am talking about two male gametes. One pollen grain contains or gives rise to how many male gametes? Two male gametes, always to remember. Now, this parts of the diagram we don't need now. So let me just erase all these. Now, this process of double fertilization to understand, the process of double fertilization we want to understand. So, it is the male gamete just now that I've been talking about. Then what about the female gamete? We try to understand what about the female gamete. Now, a single cell of the ovule. Let us also talk about one single cell of the ovule. This is the male gamete. I talk about the female gamete then. The female gamete, a single cell of the ovule. What will happen to this? This single cell of the ovule. What is this? I have drawn here. This is the ovule. What is ovule? It is the chamber of the ovary. The chambers of the ovary, an ovary, in the ovary of a flower, the ovules are variable. Some may have two chambers, some may have just one, some may have more than two, 8, 16. The number of ovules are variable in different flowers. So what is an ovule otherwise? The chambers of the ovary. So this particular nucleus or this particular cell of the ovule will undergo meiosis.
जितने ओव्यूल में उतने सीड्स रहते हैं ना।
उतने seeds, yes. So it will undergo 2 meiotic divisions. एक meiosis होगा, 1 meiosis होगा, then how many cells will be formed? If one cell undergoes meiosis, then how many
Four.
cells will be formed? 4. I'm talking about 2 meiotic division. Then how many
8
cells should be formed from 1? 8. So I'm talking about how many parts this nucleus will divide actually. 1 division may 4, 2 divisions may 8. So I now talk about what will be the characteristic of this ovule. This ovule will develop 8 gametes. Which are those 8 gametes? 2 in the center, one big gamete at the base, 2 more at the lateral sides of it, and 3 more at the upper ends. What are these gametes known as? The most important gamete in the center, this is known as the egg cell. One single nucleus divided into 8 gametes. How? By 2 meiotic or 2 meiotic divisions. Then this 8 nuclei, what are they known as? These are not wet form cells, small nuclear parts which are cytoplasm. The most bigger one, the most prominent one, egg cell. What about these two? What are these two known as? These two are known as synergids. What about the 2 in the center? The 2 in the center known as the polar nuclei, and the 3 up there, these are known as antipodals. So now the 8 gametes, and 8 gametes for the female, 2 gametes for the male. And now we try understanding the concept of double fertilization. So now if this is there in a flower, that for 8 female gametes, we are talking about only 2 male gametes will carry out the process of fertilization. So let us now try understanding how does fertilization take place. But before we understand the concept of fertilization in the flower, before fertilization, pollination is a must. Before fertilization, pollination is a must. Do you know what is the definition of pollination? Definition क्या है? Pollination का definition क्या है? Is the basic one, the remote one. What is the definition of pollination? From definition of pollination is what? हाँ? बंद करो. हाँ? तो फैन चला है? अच्छा चलो
अभी फैन मत चल.
अच्छा
ज़्यादा ठंडी लगी.
Now when we are talking about this, let us try understanding the process. I asked you what is pollination. Are you aware what is pollination? The transfer of the pollen grains from anther to stigma. So now 2 concepts only to study for you. I talk about a flower. I talk about a flower here. This is a plant. This is the other plant, and then the flower that I'm talking about, the other plant and the flower. Now, if the process of pollination is happening this way, I'm talking about the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma happening within the same flower. What type of pollination is this? A. I'm talking about the transfer of the pollen grain from the anther to the stigma, but now involving 2 flowers of the same plant. What is this type of pollination known as? And now I'm talking about the transfer of the pollen grain from anther to stigma of 2 different flowers of 2 different plants. What is this method of pollination known as? Can you tell me? What is A? A क्या है? Self pollination. B क्या है? B क्या है? You have come across pollination पढ़ा था पहले? नहीं पढ़ा कभी? अच्छा, pollination is the basic definition always to remember. लिखना है. What is pollination? definition between difference between pollination and fertilization भी आता है एग्जाम में. Differentiate. What is pollination? The transfer लिखो फटाफट, and the basic difference also. What is pollination? Difference of I'm sorry, the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma. Transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma is known as pollination. So ये general definition है. Transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma is pollination. अभी we know that there are two types of pollination. So what is self-pollination? What is self-pollination? फटाफट एक difference लिखो. Self and cross. Self and cross pollination का difference. Self-pollination. Now see here, A and B both are self-pollination. So कैसे define करेंगे? When the transfer of the pollen grain takes place from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, or two flowers of the same plant, as long as the plant is same, it is self-pollination. Transfer of the pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower between two plants. When the process is happening between two plants, it is cross-pollination. Same plant में है self. Never mind, it is between 2-3 plants. Write down self-pollination. Transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma. Transfer of pollen grain between anther to stigma. Transfer of pollen grain from the anther to stigma of the same flower, or between two flowers, of the same plant. Between two flowers of the same plant is known as self-pollination. Other side, cross-pollination. For cross-pollination, what to write? Transfer of pollen grain from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower. From anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower in two different plants. Is cross-pollination. In two different plants is known as cross-pollination. Now self-pollination, generally what type of flowers will show self-pollination? So try understanding. The self-pollination के लिए what is needed? The flower should have the male and the female parts both. What type of a flower will show self-pollination? जिसमें anther भी है and stigma भी है. Meaning stamen भी है, carpel भी है. So what type of flowers are these? Bisexual. And if I talk about cross-pollination, yes, possible that these two flowers are bisexual also, but mostly unisexual है तो cross-pollination is a must. Unisexual flowers, they can never show self-pollination. Yes or no? If it is a unisexual flower, unisexual matlab the flower has either the stamen or the carpel. Hibiscus, now that we know, that is a bisexual. But we talk about the palm and the papaya, that we know these are unisexual. So there are many unisexual flowers, there are many bisexual flowers. So if it is self-pollination, can a unisexual flower show self-pollination ever? Never. So self-pollination is only for bisexual flowers, but cross-pollination दोनों में हो सकता है. I may say that cross-pollination takes place both in unisexual and bisexual, but unisexual will only have cross-pollination. Unisexual में self-pollination नहीं हो सकता. Am I clear? The 3-4 sentences that I told you. So try to understand. Now let us try understanding the steps of double fertilization. What is the first step? The first step is fertilization. Definition of fertilization is the fusion of one male gamete with the one female gamete to give rise to a single cell zygote. So for this process of fertilization, double fertilization, we need to know only the structure of the carpel here, and then that the anther is showing this. There's one diagram in your textbook or the volume also, which explains the parts of the stigma. So this also try to practice drawing. Let me finish with the syllabus, then one class only for drawing I devote. So that class, certain diagrams extra also we will have to draw. So let us talk about the structure of the ovule now. To understand double fertilization, how will the arrangement of the ovule be? The arrangement of the ovule will be like this. There is always a small opening at the base. There is the big female gamete. What is the big female gamete? Known as the egg cell. And on the sides of the female gamete, there are two synergids. The two female gametes in the center, what is it known as? The polar nuclei. Three at the anterior end, what are they known as? Antipolars. So these are the names. What about the pollen grain here? I understand that there is one pollen here which had a single nucleus and it has undergone these processes of growth. So if it has undergone these processes of growth, this also must have formed a very long pollen tube which is moving till the end of the embryo sac, that is the ovule. So how many male gametes are expected in this pollen tube? How many male gametes? Two male gametes. So one and then two male gametes. So I now talk about these two male gametes and the 8 female gametes. The first step is fertilization, where this male gamete will come and fuse. I talk about these two male gametes which are there in the pollen tube. So one by one they will come and fuse. Let me talk about the first male gamete here. So this part, the first male gamete starts moving this way towards the ovule, enters into the embryo sac through a small opening. There is a small opening at the base of the ovule. What is this opening known as? This opening is known as the micropyle. What is micropyle? A small opening that is there at the base of the ovule. What is the need? The need is for the male gametes one by one to enter into the embryo sac. So I understand that this first male gamete has come in contact with the egg cell now. It has entered. This process of fusion of the first male gamete and the egg cell is what is known as fertilization. What will it give rise to? Zygote. So what is it? Fusion of one male gamete. So I would write the egg cell and the first male gamete. The egg cell and the first male gamete fuses, and what will they give rise to? They will give rise to the zygote. This zygote, which is a single cell formed just after the process of fertilization, will get converted very soon into a multicellular structure, and this multicellular structure is now known as the embryo. Let us see here in this ovule also, in this chamber also. So yes, the male gamete and the female gamete which came together, this has resulted in the formation of a single small cell, and this single small cell is now known as the zygote. So there is, this is the zygote which has formed. How is the zygote formed? By fertilization. But what will happen to this zygote? It is a single cell but with diploid nucleus. I already mentioned this word diploid, matlab full chromosome number. So this particular cell can easily undergo the process of division, cell division. But cell division ke liye it will require nutrients. From where will it get the nutrients? It will take the nutrients from the synergids. So now the synergies are all to be used up. The synergies are all used up. They are not there anymore. Why? Because this embryo is utilizing it, and this will start getting converted into a multicellular structure. What is this multicellular structure now known as? Embryo. What is the difference between zygote and embryo? Zygote is a single cell. Embryo is a multicellular structure. तो जब तक ये embryo बन रहा है, by that time, these two polar nuclei fuse together, resulting in the formation of a single cell. So the second step is the fusion of the two polar nuclei. Fusion of the two polar nuclei, resulting in what? A secondary cell. So now I am saying that two polar nuclei, two gametes are fusing. Why not we term this as fertilization? इसको fertilization बोल सकते हैं क्या? Fusion of two polar nuclei को fertilization बोल सकते हैं? क्यों नहीं? Why not? Because both these are female gametes. Fertilization मतलब one male and one female होना चाहिए. One male gamete and one female gamete, if they fuse together, then only it is fertilization. Is the fusion of the two polar nuclei fertilization? No, it is both female gamete. Both are female gametes. That's why not fertilization, not a problem. So by that time, this secondary nucleus is formed. The second male gamete will come and get fused. The male gamete is moving and get fused with the secondary nucleus. And this secondary nucleus, the secondary cell, and the second male gamete, they will fuse together and result in the formation of an endosperm. Result in the formation of an endosperm. Endosperm also is a single cell, but this endosperm is actually formed by the fusion of three nuclei. Yes or no? The endosperm is formed by the fusion of three nuclei, two and then one. Yes or no? This endosperm is formed by the fusion of three nuclei. That's why the second step is known as triple fusion. Why this method is known as triple fusion? Because three nuclei fusing together. Three nuclei fusing together, resulting in the formation of endosperm. But ये endosperm भी very soon, this also will start giving rise to a multicellular structure. But ये multicellular structure बनेगा, but then now that is a stage where this multicellular structure will grow, or this will grow. Absolutely depends on what type of a plant it is. If this plant is a dicot plant, then what will happen? This embryo will develop much faster and bigger. If it is a monocot plant, then this will develop much bigger and prominent. So dicot matlab a type of a plant which has got two parts of a seed. Monocot matlab a type of a plant which has got only one part of a seed. The corn, the rice, monocot. Dicot, the pea, the gram, almonds, peanuts, all these are dicot. Any type of a plant where the seed has two parts, dicot. So now we are trying to understand that majorly in the dicot, as per your syllabus, we are talking about discussing dicot plants now. So if it is the dicot, then this will start developing much prominently. So now this embryo starts developing and the endosperm will not develop now. So the nutrients of the endosperm, the nutrients of the antipodals are all used up by this, and this becomes prominent in the entire ovule. This starts growing much faster, becomes a bigger multicellular structure, and becomes prominent in the ovule. By that time, this type of structures are developing. What about the rest? These parts of the plant will all start drying out. It will all start drying out and falling off. It will all start drying out and falling off. and what will be remaining is time transformation that will happen in the flower, and this is the fruit that has developed. From the flower, by the time all these embryo and all these structures are getting formed, what has happened? These structures are all getting formed, the outer covering all getting formed, and there's a small opening still left here. The outer coat getting formed. So now the entire flower got transformed into a fruit now. But what was this part in the flower? What was this? This was the ovary which got developed into the fruit now. So this outer wall of the ovary will be now known as the pericarp, the outer wall of the fruit, pericarp. What about this? This was the ovule earlier. So what did the ovule give rise to? It has given rise to the seed. So the ovule gave rise to the seed, the ovary gave rise to the entire fruit. But the layers now, if you try to understand, the layers would be something like this. The outermost layer, the pericarp, the middle fleshy layer in most of the fruits which are edible, that is known as the mesocarp, and the innermost layer, that is the covering, the protective layer of the seed, that is known as the seed coat or the endocarp. So which are the layers? Outermost to innermost, pericarp, mesocarp, endocarp. For most of the fruits, this is what is the formation. The outer peel, the edible fleshy part, and then the seed. But in only certain types we come across. Now if I talk about the almonds, the peanut, is this fleshy part there? No, this fleshy part is not there. The seed and then the pericarp and the seed coat is fused. So this is a special characteristic when we talk about the grains and the nuts. But otherwise, if I talk about the true fruits, the mango, the jackfruit and all these, they are majorly based on this method. What is this method known as? Double fertilization. Two sets of fusion in the same ovule. So this was the first phase and this is the second phase. Fertilization and triple fusion taking place in the same ovule, transforming the entire flower into a fruit. This method is known as double fertilization. Yes, steps. You have to be very clear. Now read the volume. In the volume also we have given the points very nicely. The diagram, the section of the carpel, indicating all these stages, the names of the gametes have to be very clear. Before you come for the next class, I had asked you to leave one page for the diagram. Whichever diagram not done, check and complete those diagrams. इसमें ऐसे प्रैक्टिस होगा छोटे छोटे हाँ प्रॉपर नोटबुक में हाफ अ पेज में so all throughout your syllabus you just have 12 diagrams to practice. वो 12 में से 2 या 3 diagrams, 2 diagrams for drawing.
12 तो biology के chemistry के experiment experiments के
अरे पैकअप हो गया? पैकअप में बेस नहीं होना चाहिए ना? समझ में आया? Doubts है? Next, now see 10th standard batch. Which month is going on? September अभी खत्म ही होने वाला है, एक आध भी बचा है। पर फिर भी किसी के पास कोई डाउट नहीं है, कोई डाउट नहीं है। मीनिंग?
बहुत अच्छा बात है।
नो, वो मुझे पता है, वो बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है। 10th स्टैंडर्ड बैच में सितंबर तक भी कोई डाउट नहीं है, मतलब सीरियसली अभी तक पढ़ाई शुरू हुआ है? हाँ नहीं, कब पढ़ना है? दिवाली के बाद? हाँ?
एक दिन पहले, पेपर के एक दिन पहले।
तूने किया
अरे नाम भी क्या बोलता है यार अरे नोट्स अंदर भी हाथ खेली आते
कौन सा वाला चाहिए
नहीं रे हो गया अरे
वो साइन करना था मुझे पता भी मुझे साइन करना है यहाँ पे चुपचाप से रखा हुआ तुम्हें भी पास कर सकती नहीं भाई इसको इधर ही एलर्जी है ना इनसे संजीवनी